When a veteran files for disability compensation or VA pension, one of the first things that happens is the VA, after it gathers some evidence or documentation, will schedule the veteran for something known as a CNP exam, or a compensation and pension exam. And this is critical to the disability compensation process. Veterans don't quite understand what's happening with these examinations and why they're so important. So the purpose of this video is really to explain the two different parts of a medical examination. Part one is a medical opinion and the relevance of a medical opinion, and then part two is the medical examination. They're usually done by the same examiner on the same day, and the veterans don't realize there's two separate things happening. So I want to break that up and discuss the relevance of each of those. So in part one, we're going to discuss a medical opinion. Now, one of the things that's happened in the last 5 to 10 years is the VA has moved to a contracted CNP examination process whereby they use really primarily 3 separate contracted providers: VES, LHI, and QTC. This becomes problematic because veterans get calls from these third-party entities asking for their social security numbers or whatever it is, asking for sensitive information and telling them that they're scheduled for an exam with them. Well, the veterans are very leery of this, especially in the information age that we're in, where people are trying to defraud you for your information. And you can be rest assured, if you file a claim, I can't guarantee you anything, but if you file a claim and someone from LHI, QTC, or VES contacts you, it's probably in furtherance of your VA disability claim. So it's incumbent on you to schedule that exam, because without that examination in the CNP exam, your claim's not really going anywhere. They need that evidence. That's why they scheduled it. They, as in the VA. The VA reaches out to these third-party entities. So the first thing I want to discuss is just that when these contracted entities call you, schedule the exam. But before you go to the exam, you want to be aware of some of the other things we're about to discuss. That examiner is going to do one of two things. They're going to do a medical opinion, or they're going to do a medical examination. Medical examination is going to be part 2 of our video discussion here. Medical opinion is part 1. A medical opinion, succinctly, is going to be used for establishing service connection. A medical examination, to contrast, is going to be used for establishing the degree of your impairment, or establishing the degree of your symptoms, the severity of your symptoms. Essentially, how much money are you going to get? What's your disability evaluation going to be? That's examination. Medical opinion is, are we establishing service connection? Did the military cause something? So again, we're going to start with medical opinions. I don't like to read when I do videos. However, I'm going to read this definition of what service connection is according to 38 CFR 3.301. Service connected means, with respect to disability or death, that such disability was incurred or aggravated, or that the death resulted from a disability incurred or aggravated in line of duty in the military, naval, or air service. All right, so that's a mouthful. What does that mean? Let's hash that out. What's that really mean in layman terms? It means that you had an event on active duty, you have a current disability, and an expert, provided a nexus linking the event on active duty to the current disability. So again, the 3 elements of service connection: an event on active duty, a current disability, and a medical professional providing some type of nexus linking the event to the current disability. Now, sometimes it might not be a medical professional. It might be a law where they say the nexus is conceded as long as you meet the other 2 criteria. But again, event, current disability, and a nexus linking the 2. So medical opinions are used to establish that. There tends to be really 3 different types of ways that you can obtain service connection. One is going to be what's known as direct service connection. One is going to be known as secondary, and then the other one's going to be an aggravation theory, which is kind of a secondary. Now, the direct, you have things called a presumptive, like Agent Orange, Camp Lejeune, Gulf War illnesses, where the VA will concede the nexus as long as you meet certain parameters. So the reason we're talking about this medical opinion is we're talking about VA examinations. Veterans have a habit of jumping into showing all this proof of how severely disabled they are. I've got all these cancers. I've had multiple knee surgeries. And they keep sending evidence of all the treatments they get. The problem is the VA is not refuting that you have a condition. Veterans, listen to me. The VA is not refuting you have a medical condition. The VA is saying that your service from 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago didn't cause your conditions. So the biggest hurdle veterans have to overcome is showing that active duty service caused your condition today. not that you have a severe condition. You need to show that your condition is attributable to your military service. Once you get over that hurdle, and the VA's conceded service connection, where they use a medical opinion through the examination process into CNP exam, once you get past that hurdle, the next hurdle is establishing the severity of your symptoms. It's pretty straightforward, but this is one of the most overlooked things by veterans. They go into every exam talking about how bad they are today. And the doctors don't tend to care often either, because you have to get past hurdle 1 before you can even touch on hurdle 2. Hurdle 1 is establishing service connection. Hurdle 2 is establishing the severity of your impairment. Establishing service connection is primarily accomplished by the VA when they request a medical opinion from the examiner who's examining you at the compensation and pension examination. I hope this makes sense. If you've understood what I've described, or you're already service connected with a condition, go on to part 2, where we're going to talk about establishing the severity of your impairment, getting into what's called the rating schedule, or part 4 of the VA regulations. If you're representing yourself and you really want to look into regulations and reference some type of law, 38 CFR 3.303 and 38 CFR 3.304 are the 2 primary regulations you're looking at for establishing service connection. But those regulations are usually supported by statutes as well. But those are the primary ones that you're going to want to point to, which are going to really discuss what I just discussed here in more legalese terms. But regardless, medical opinions equal service connection. If you're not over the service connection hump, then you don't need to really focus too much on the degree of your impairment, because you got to get service connection first.